Hello all, how's all going? Matt Ross at Simple Strength Training here again. And we're up to my comp prep diary number 7 or week 7. I've done one competition at the Eurostern Cup at 618 barbell last week and one to go, which is about 14 days away. And that'll be at Southern Strength and Conditioning in Seaford. If you just want to have a watch, come on down, that'll be great. It's a GPC event and they're a great bunch of people and really friendly people. And it's a really, really fun day. Alrighty, before we get into what's going into the video this week, I would like to ask all you lovely people out there a favour. I'm trying to get my subscriber base up to the first goal of 100 subscribers because that just opens up a few more things for me as far as YouTube goes, and it makes it look a bit better and helps with the presentation of things as far as visually goes when you look at my YouTube page and things like that. Alrighty, if you could do that, that would be great. And how do you go about doing that? All you got to do is look down the bottom there. You'll see the like, share, and subscribe buttons. Click on them. You know all about that stuff. That would be great. Share me around with your friends. All the help I can get is great. Also, how you can help me out is leaving comments and questions down the bottom. I'm happy to answer anything you would like to ask me in regards to training, give you advice on nutrition. I'm not a nutritionist, but I'm happy to give you some advice on nutrition. If I can help you out with any training questions, I'm more than happy to. Also, on that note, I am a personal trainer. So if you would like to train with me, in the description down below is where all my personals are. Get in there, have a look. Contact me through one of them or through YouTube. Just send me a message, however you want to do it. And I can help you with pretty much any of your training needs. Strength, conditioning, losing weight, putting on weight, getting bloody huge, man. Anything like that. That was a Jamaican accent, not an army accent. I often swap between accents. Irish sometimes becomes Scottish and Scottish becomes Irish. Anyway, getting away from that. So if you want help with any of your training, just give us a call or a contact down the bottom. And once again, please feel free to ask me any questions. And if I can help you, I will. If I can't, I'll point you in the direction of someone who can, or I'll find the answer for you and answer it. Either way, I will try my best to help you. Alrighty, what's going to be in the video diary this week? Well, obviously my prep from last week, what I got up to for my training prep. Also, I'm going to discuss my goals, my long-term goals and my short-term goals, my goals for this competition and what I'm aiming to do. Plus, I'm also going to touch on what I'm doing after this, my training and how it's going to be sort of broken up and organised coming into next year's competition. So over Christmas and that'll be a bit of an off season for me. Yeah, that's pretty much what the diary is going to be this week. So let's get on with the diary now. Well, this week saw me take the first 3 days off actual training. So after the competition on Sunday, I took Monday, Tuesday and Wednesday off. No training Monday or Tuesday. Basically just kept doing my steps and all that sort of stuff. All the normal stuff I'd do outside of that, but just did no training. Didn't touch a barbell in any way, shape or form other than my clients. Wednesday, I did my mobility work still. I got that in there, did a bit more cardio, a bit of extra cardio on the bike, a little bit of what you'd call HIIT training, but not in the sense that you would think about it. It was more of 30 seconds on, 30 seconds off on the bike for 10 minutes, but I cranked the resistance up. So instead of trying to pedal as fast as I can, I try to pedal through mud for 30 seconds as a bit of a difference, just because I don't have a sled at the moment. And that sort of emulates a bit of sled work. Not exactly, probably, but it's better than nothing, and it gives me a bit of stress of pushing against something hard and gives me that feeling of effort. And plus, did a bit of walking that morning, incline walking to go with that for about 20 minutes, and then my mobility work after that, which was pretty much what I do every Wednesday. So that was the start of it again. And then I went back into my normal weeks of training. I went back to my normal day 3 training. The difference was on the Friday, I split that up into a Friday, Saturday training. As I had Saturday off work, I thought rather than try and push things too much after the competition and sort of let my body work back into lifting the heavier weights again after the competition, to try and keep the accumulated stress down. I did my pause squats, supersetted with my bench on Friday morning, which is what I normally would do. And then on the Saturday, I did my competition deadlift, and then I did my back work after that I would normally do, my accessory work for that. In saying that, I was pretty chuffed with my deadlift workout that day. The reason being is, in the first novice comp I attended, my max was 202.5 for 1 rep. On that day, I did 202.5 kilos for 3 reps. I felt like I had at least 2 more to go, but that was my lifter's brain going, go on, do it, lift it, go on. But my coach brain telling me to, no, you got to keep that stress down again. You've got to not let too much stress build up so you get too fatigued for the competition, because I don't want to peak too early. So my coach brain said, no, keep it at 3. That's where it started to feel a little bit heavier to move. So that's where I stopped. As you do with a lot of heavy work when you're leading into the competitions, you want to leave yourself at least 1 or 2 reps in reserve of those heavy lifts, so not to let that accumulated stress build up. Not so much the stress of that one workout, but the stress of all the workouts being added together, because they do build up. I still went into my back off work, which is the same way I normally do it, Ed Cohen style, at about, I think it was 180.5 kilos, 3 reps, Ed Cohen, the way Ed Cohen used to train them. You do the deadlift, but you sort of treat the eccentric as an RDL eccentric, and you control the weight just so it touches on the floor. And outside of that, that was my lifting diary for the week. Very uncomplicated, not much to it, simply because I had 3 days off at the beginning of the week, and that was to sort of give me not so much a full deload. It was probably, you consider it to be a high intensity deload with the lifting comp in there. And as I said in my diary last week, I tried to work out so the competition become my training days that I was going to miss out on from the days of rest I had leading up to and after the competition. So, and that seems to be working pretty good. I wasn't too fatigued at all. Actually, it was probably the best I've ever pulled up after a competition, as I said last week. Let's now get to my goals. And these goals are going to be some short-term goals and some long-term goals. And then after that, I'm going to touch on my training for the off-season and how I'm going to sort of organise that and what I'm going to be doing there. Alrighty, goals. Before we get into what my specific goals are, I want to talk a little bit about goals. I believe everyone should have a really big goal, a big goal that seems a little bit scary to say. And the reason I say that is because if your goal is to get to the stars and you only get to the clouds, you're much better off than where you were when you first started on the ground. And that's why you have that's why you have the goals. Even if you fail and you only get halfway to the goal on your first attempt, you're still in a much better place than what you were when you started. You got to plan steps out to get to those goals, those big lofty goals, those goals that are scary for you to say. And that's what you do. Instead of saying, well, I want to reach for the stars, so by the end of next week I'm going to be in a spaceship, you go, well, maybe I'll just go for a hot air balloon ride. That'll get me up into the sky and floating around and doing some things and having a look around. Then your next goal might be, I'll hop in an aeroplane and fly pretty high through the clouds, and that'll be pretty good. The next one might be, if you can get there, is you hop in one of those flights that take you through a 0G flight that sits right on the edge of the atmosphere, up really high. Them sort of things. But step by step by step by step to get to those big goals. And you plan them out. And you give yourself a reasonable time frame to do them in. Don't say, like I said, I'm going to try and get to the stars, but I'm going to do it next week, because that's not going to happen, I'm afraid. Like, to be honest, that's probably a pretty bullshit sort of way to look at setting your goals. you want to set out a nice, big, scary goal, then break it down. Go, well, what do I have to do to get halfway there? Where's halfway? That's that point there, right. So that's halfway to that goal. So I'll break that down again. I go, where's halfway between that? You go, rightio, so that's that there. Then you break that down again, and you keep breaking it down, and then you just make those small steps. And every time you make one of those small steps through that list of small goals that are achievable as your next goal, eventually you'll look back and you'll go, hold on a sec, I'm 3/4 of the way to reaching my top goal. My big goal, that goal that was so scary for me to say before, but I'm already 3/4 of the way there. And you go, holy shit, I can do this. The other reason I believe that you should have big goals and set yourself some goals is it gives you a reason and motivation to get out and train, regardless of what your training is. Lifting, running, doing a triathlon, playing sport, darts, learning to paint, learning to draw, learning to use a welder, whatever your goals are. In saying that, my specific goals are, my big goals for myself are, I want to squat 200 kilos, bench press 140 kilos, and deadlift 300 kilos. Some of them numbers are pretty scary for me to say, especially the bench press and the deadlift one. The squat, the 200 kilo squat goal is something I've been aiming for a little while now. So I'm at that point with that one that I'm like getting close to getting there. The deadlift one, I'm still a fair way off, and the same with the bench press one. I'm still a fair way off that one, as the bench press is a bit of a different animal, and it tends to increase a lot slower than the other bigger lifts do. Pardon me, but they're my goals. Do I think I'm going to get them in 3 months' time? I do not. I really do not. I do have some other goals to give you an example of how I'm breaking that down. So for this next competition I'm doing at the GPC, to get a bit more shorter and smaller time framed, my goal there is to hit my squat for 180 kilos, which is 5 kilos more than I've previously done. And on the day, I might go up to 182.5 kilos. But my goal for that day is to do a 180 kilo squat. My bench press, my goal for that day is to hit a 215 kilo bench press. Sorry, not a 215 kilo bench press, 115 kilo bench press. 215 kilo bench press, I would have just out here somewhere probably. And much bigger shoulders and a much bigger back and a much wider neck than the chicken neck I've got going on here. No, but my goal there is 115 kilos, which is once again 5 kilos more than I've already lifted. My goal for the deadlift in that event at that competition will be 220 kilos. And that'll be 10 kilos more than I've already lifted. And the reason for those slightly smaller goals is because they're obtainable, they're reachable, they're the next step. And that's how you set out your goals. So, and after that, for me, my next squat goal will be working on making my legs bigger, a bit strong, a bit more muscle mass on my legs, so I can lift that 5 kilos more and hit 185 kilograms after that. And then go through that same process again. So for my squat, I can get it up to 190 kilos. And slowly and slowly and slowly you take each step until you hit your goal or you surpass your goal. But that's the idea of setting the goals. So to basically recap that, my big long-term goals are my squats, hit 200 kilograms, bench 140 kilograms, and deadlift 300 kilograms. And they're my big long-term goals at the moment. My short-term goals for this next competition are squat 180 kilos, bench press 115 kilos, and deadlift 220 kilos. Now, in between those 2 points, that goal where I've got now and that other big goal, I've got other goals I want to reach that I'm sort of aiming to hit, that I've got plans to try and achieve. So that 200 kilogram squat, I'm planning to try and achieve that by the time I get to a national titles event later in the year next year, either around August or October, somewhere around there. I'm looking at hitting that 200 kilogram squat. But I'm not looking at hitting the 140 kilo bench then, because I don't think at this point in time, with the way I'm progressing with those weights, that I'm going to get to that weight. If I do, that's great. But my aim for that event is 130 kilo bench press. If I surpass that, that's fantastic and that's great, but that's my aim at the moment for a national titles event next year. And for my deadlift, my aim there is 250 kilos at a national at that same event. And that's what I'm going to do. Is they're the goals I've got to hit at those events. But to get to there, I've got to do this first event and hit those goals there. So first step, small step. Go to this next event, hit those goals that I've put for myself there. And if I don't, hit them next time. And then push that next goal up to try and reach that middle goal, step by step by step. And once I get to that middle goal, I'll be going, well, hold on a sec. I've only got this much to go to reach that next goal. And that's what I'll do. I'll take that next step. With my squat, I'll go, hold on a second. If I next year, when I get to the national titles event, if I hit that 200 kilo, that's one of my long-term goals for squatting. I would have hit that, and I'll be sitting there going, whoa, yes, over the moon. But then I'd sit down and go, what's the next goal I want to hit? What's the next thing I want to do with it? And then I move on from there. And something that I think is achievable and obtainable and realistic, but something that's scary for me to say. And that's how I think you should orientate your goals. And that's my goals that I've got coming up for me and how I've orientated them. So what I think we'll do now is have a bit of a chat about what I'm planning on doing after all this and through the off season. Just touch on it briefly, nothing too in depth. Just have a quick chat about my plan and reaching those next goals that I just mentioned and what I'm putting down in place to get there. Okay, so what I'm doing during the off season, and this is where planning for your goals that I was just talking about comes into it. I've told you what my goals are for national titles and stuff next year, so I've got to put in a plan to try and reach them. And for me, that means I think I need to make my base mass or my muscle mass the foundation, which is one of my things I believe. You need a great foundation to build from. So in order for me to lift more, I need to make my foundation a bit bigger and a bit strong, a bit more. I need to make my foundation bigger and put a bit more muscle and mass on my foundation. I have a bit of a training philosophy, which I sort of look at. It's a bit of a simplified version of what everyone else puts out there, because that's how I like to try and look at things at a very simple point, from a very simple point of view. It's easy to understand. And that makes it easy for me to understand, easy for you to understand, and easy for me to explain it to you. And I think I'm going to do a video series on this later on as I get a bit more adept at doing YouTube stuff and videos and things. But a basic breakdown of it is make them bigger, make them stronger, show them off. So for me, I'm going to spend the next 3 to 4 months making them bigger. And then I'm going to spend about 2 months making them stronger. And then I'm going to get ready for a competition and show them off. All right. And that's basically how I think training breaks down in the most simplified version of it. And I've sort of come to that conclusion after looking at looking at other people's programs and how they all work and how they organise their training and all that, or how they periodise their training, DUP, Westside, and all them sort of things. They all work on a very similar premise. They all have a make them bigger stage, make them stronger stage, and a show them off stage. Some do them a little bit more different, a little bit more complex than others, but that's basically how I do it. So for me, and I'll just won't worry about going into that too much, but for me, how I look at that is I need to make my muscles bigger, stronger. Some people call that accumulation, hypertrophy, massing. I just call it making bigger. That's basically what it means. That's basically what I'm going to try and do. Then I'm going to make them stronger. And what I mean by that is I'm going to make them realize, I'm going to make the muscle learn to use that mass and muscle that I've gained as strength. So it moves into being more of a lifting heavy focus, and it teaches the muscle to use the muscle mass to move heavier weights. And then you get it ready for competition. Lifting those one singular really heavy lifts up in that 95% plus area is a bit of a different animal to just doing the strength training and the massing training. So you've got to do a little bit of that just to get yourself ready for competition. That varies from person to person. I'm not going to go into the in-depth details of all of this because that becomes more specific to each individual and what they need and their training career and how long they've been training and where they are in their journey and all that sort of stuff. But basically for me, I'll be spending the next 3 or 4 months where 80 to 85% of my training will be based around making my muscles bigger. I will keep in some of the heavy work, probably just making sure I keep touching the main lifts for at least one set through that period at the beginning of each workout, just to keep my body used to that sort of level of training, lifting the heavy weights. But outside of that, it will be predominantly a lot of work towards building muscle mass. Then I will focus on moving into the strength. There will be a little bit more overlap there. So that first month that I said I'll be strength building for a couple of months maybe will overlap with that last month of making the muscles bigger. So the strong bit and the making them bigger bit will overlap a little bit just to ease into one from one to the other. And then when I get closer to where I need to get ready for an actual competition, I'll introduce that show 'em off period. And that show 'em off period for me is get my body ready to get on the lifting stage and do the lifts for those 1 rep maxes. And your body needs to go through a neurological change and get used to being under those really, really, really heavy weights that are at the extreme of where you can lift. You need to prepare yourself, not only physically, mentally, but neurologically. And that's when all your systems work together to lift that weight, because it is a very different sort of animal to get used to. As I get a bit better at making these videos, I'm looking at going a bit more into that, my philosophy of training and making them bigger, stronger, and show them off. Because I believe pretty much most training stems from that or revolves around that, and that's the easiest way for most people to understand. And when I'm talking about that's what I believe most training is, I'm not talking about for those elite athletes that need very precise, very specific training, although it does apply to them, but in a much more in-depth version. But for the general people out there that are just starting out or in the middle of their career or aren't looking to make this an elite performance sport for themselves, that's pretty much as hard as it gets. You make them bigger, you get them stronger, and you show them off. And that works for all sports. It's the same thing. In your off season, you improve. So off season for, say, rugby league or Aussie rules, you spend time getting your muscles bigger. As you come into the season, you start getting them ready to show that you start getting them ready by getting them used to doing more work, more endurance work, that sort of thing, improving your cardiovascular. And then throughout the season, you're training to show that off. Your training becomes very specific to playing the sport. You still keep a little bit of those other things in there to maintain them, but then your training becomes just the ability to show them off. All right, and it applies to just about everything. They all have different time frames and how they apply throughout their plans and things like that, but it basically applies to just about all forms of training that you can think of. Anyway, before I get into that too much and start going off on 7 million tangents on you, I think we'll call it quits there for this week. Just to finish off, we'll go over the housekeeping stuff again. Trying to get up to 100 subscribers. I really appreciate your help with that if you can get there and do it. how you do it. Like, subscribe, and share down the bottom. Just opens up a couple of things on Facebook. Sorry, not on Facebook, on YouTube for me. Makes the appearance of it a little bit better for you. Also, please comment. Love your comments. Love having a comment. I haven't had a comment yet. I'm still a comment version. Hit me up. Bad comments, good comments, whatever you want to chuck in down there, get into it. If you've got any questions about diet, training, or anything like that, hit me up down the bottom as well. I'll answer them if I can. If I can't, I'll try and find the answer. If I can't find the answer, I'll point you in the direction of someone that should be able to answer the question for you. Not afraid to point people in the right direction in any way, shape, or form. I'm here to help you. And in saying that, if you do want help with your losing a bit of weight or getting a bit fitter, I'm a personal trainer. Once again, you can contact me down the bottom there in the description area in my socials. Also, if you want to get a bit stronger, improve that conditioning, or just get bigger muscles, hit me up down the bottom there as well. Alrighty, that's about it. So I will say goodbye and say have fun, staying strong for life, people.